Welcome to Mo Inspiration, a podcast where we look at young successful individuals and see how they've succeeded in life. We look at their journey, their education, the struggles, and we talk about mental health. Today we have Ramez, the math magician.
Mahmood?
Mahmood,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah. Yes, a very long word, long title.
You know the nickname though.
Yeah, we know the nickname. I've known Ramez from Beale High School and sixth form. Obviously, he's become a boxer and he's also become a teacher as well. It's a bit of a weird combination, but having said that, when I was in Beale, there was a maths teacher, Mr. Roger. Was it Mr. Roger?
Mr. Roger, he's still there.
I don't know whether he's still there.
He used to be, yeah. He's a maths now, yeah.
He was a MMA fighter, wasn't he?
He was an MMA fighter, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously we're just going to start the topic off as everyone knows with, what do you define success as?
Success, I think that comes down to each individual preference. I think everyone sets themselves individual goals.
Yeah.
And I think success is a matter of achieving those goals, whatever they may be. So in my scenario, it will be boxing. Getting to a certain level in boxing will be a success for me. Certain people's success will be to maybe get married at a certain age or have a house at a certain age. So I think success is achieving goals that each individual sets themselves.
Okay. That is a very good answer. I mean, that kind of like scopes it out. So let's talk about, so when you were, let's say, 15, 16 years old,
Yeah.
what do you think your goals were at that point?
They haven't really changed too much, to be honest. When I was 15, 16, I always wanted to become a professional boxer. Never had the aspiration of being a teacher, as it happens. It was always to be a professional boxer, to be honest. Where the teaching come into it was I got to around about the age of 18 or 19 and I said, I want to be a professional boxer. My mum and dad said, yeah, you can do that, fair enough, but it's a hard career to go into. You could get injured, and then what you left with. So they sort of pushed me down the university route alongside still doing my boxing. When I graduated from uni, that's when, and then I managed to get myself a full-time job. I had that backup, and then I was able to become a professional boxer at the same time as well. And since then, I've sort of juggled two goals. So now we talk about success. My success is still achieving titles in boxing, but at the same time, growing as a teacher as well.
Okay, yeah, because I would say that obviously I never thought of you, don't take this the wrong way, as a teacher when but we never really interacted as much as other people may have interacted with you, but I just thought you'd end up being a boxer. So when I first heard that you became a teacher, I was like, oh, okay, but then it kind of makes sense. I mean, you do need a full-time job as well at the same time. And if you studied maths at university, so we'll go into that. So obviously, if you're going to study maths, you're probably going to become a teacher. It kind of goes that way. If you study history, you'll probably become a teacher as well, as I've learnt with many of my friends. So what we can do is let's talk about Beale. Let's talk about high school, and let's talk about your childhood. Did you ever get bullied? If you didn't, just talk about, we'll just talk about your kind of GCSEs, how you came about that, how you chose your A levels, and then how you decided to which university to choose. Because again, hopefully, some of your students might be watching this. If not, then some of your friends and family or anyone who's at a young age might want to go in towards the route of being a maths teacher or go towards professional boxing, and this is a great platform for them to actually.
Some students was definitely fine. My students Google me all the time. It's the most annoying thing. But starting with the education side of it. So I was actually born in Newham and lived in East Ham as a child. And I moved over into Gantsill when I was about 8 or 9 years old. So that was during primary school. My parents moved to Gantsill for the education route. And as you mentioned, my secondary school was all throughout Beale. I started boxing literally just as I started Beale, as it happens. With education, I feel like I was always one of them students that sort of just treaded water a little bit, where I had that ability all the time, but I would never push myself. That's where I credit boxing quite a lot. I feel like without boxing, I wouldn't have done as well in my education as I did, because boxing gave me that mindset to try and be the best version that I could be. So before I started boxing, in the test, if I could get 50% and that was a pass mark, I would settle for that 50%, where in my head, I could have possibly got 70, 80 with that extra push. Boxing has given me that thing where I always push myself, even now. whatever it is, I'm so competitive now, and I want to win everything, and I want to be the best version myself I can be. So since I started boxing, I do feel like I've started excelling a bit in my education, where I've strived for the GCSE grade. So I got my GCSEs at Bill. I then stuck onto A levels at Bill, where I'd done biology, sports science, and maths, and got good A levels as well. From that point on, I mentioned my parents sort of pushed me the university route to get a degree and then get a job. So I went to University of Greenwich, sort of kept it close to home, purely for the reason to manage my training schedule quite well.
Yeah.
So I would go to uni with my gym bag, as it happened. I would rock up to uni with my gym bag, all gloves and that in there, and then my uni bag. I'll get on the train straight from uni, go straight to the gym and do a training session as well. So that's the reason between keeping the uni quite close to home. So yeah, my education boxing balanced out quite nicely.
So you're saying that obviously with the sport of being disciplined as well, it kind of brought discipline towards your studying as well.
It gave me a routine, and even now to this age, I've kept that routine, and anything I do in life revolves around a certain structure.
Okay, yeah, because obviously I've got a brother that's obviously 15, 16 years old, going through his, well, say 16 years old. He should not 15, 16 years old, but there is a lack of discipline when it comes to learning, especially when it's at home.
Right.
And obviously I think with a bit if he loves his football. If he put as much as effort into his football as he did with his studying, but I think different sports and very different personalities as well, I think kind of result in the kind of discipline that you have as well. You can't just force somebody to study, but they want to have to do it themselves.
This is it, and it comes down to how much you want something, how much you want to do it. If there's a want to do it, then you will. I think you might get to a certain age where you start not regretting, but you start realizing how important it is. And I think maybe at 15 you might just be that bit young, but hopefully it will come to him.
Yeah, because obviously, like I said, he's an aspirational. He's trying to get into professional football, so at least semi-professional footballing. And we had to have that kind of chat with him, where I was like, "Listen, do that, go for that, but you still need to put in your education first and foremost, because you start becoming a footballer, you break a leg, that's it."
Yeah, it's mad that you say that, because these are the same conversations I had with my parents back in the day, and at the time I didn't understand, and now I look back and they were telling me all the right things, but obviously at the time where I would just want to do that one thing, I sort of didn't want to listen to every other point, no matter how correct they were, and they were correct.
Yeah, and I think that just comes with obviously experiencing.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
experience, and us as young people, we don't have the experience. So we just usually it's just your parents saying, "Do this, do that," and you're like, "Yeah, you're rebellious," and what do they know and stuff like that. But I think obviously, the kind of age difference between my parents and myself, and then myself and my brother, kind of I can be that middle person, where we can just hopefully. Maybe just get into the heads a little bit, but yeah, ended up being a bit of a shouting match with them. Like, listen, you can do football, but just remember your education. And I think obviously, especially now, I think your education has to be first and foremost. I mean, you don't have to say you have to go to university, but at least get somewhere where you can get qualifications and stuff like that.
That's exactly it. Just have that fallback, because obviously, hopefully, the football does go successfully, but you've got to prepare for the worst case scenario in just any walks of life, really, because especially in the world we're living in now, you just don't know.
Yeah. That is true. So you became a teacher. So I know your parents said that you had to have something to fall back on. Why teaching?
And as I said, everything links around boxing, right? So with the teaching, it was it's weird. With teaching, it was I graduated from uni. I didn't know what job I was going to go into, and teaching was just something that I just saw on the website. I thought, let's go with that, because it was at a college at the time. That was about a 10-minute drive for me, with a 9 o'clock start and a 4 o'clock finish. So I knew that I could train before work, I could train after work, I could get to the gym in about 10 minutes, I could get home in 10 minutes. So I knew that it's like the stars aligned at that point. So that's why I went for that particular teaching job. And then that's where I started to get my training schedule going alongside the teaching.
So you decided for a career around the boxing. So
yeah,
I mean that is quite good. At least you've actually taken the steps to think about how you can still retain your boxing. So it's not just a phase that you went through. You actually want to continue that boxing.
Yeah, even now is that anything I think of is like, how can I revolve this around my boxing? And I'm quite people look at it as over the top with it, but for me, I feel like I've got to be a little bit like that to achieve what I want to achieve in boxing.
Yeah, and as I was saying to you earlier before we started this, so we already had a previous boxer on, and he has kind of told us and spoke to us about the difficulties around boxing and how you've got to just remain consistent as well
That's
with your
exactly
training,
it. Yeah.
and how competitive it is. So before we go on to the bit of the boxing, so how is it like teaching? What year? I know we can't talk about what school you go to,
Yeah.
but what year groups do you teach?
So I teach year 7 through to year 11, so up to GCSE, and then I teach A levels as well. So I've got quite a big range there.
So what's it like teaching children then? Because I actually had a friend from university, and we never saw him as a teacher. So when he became a teacher, and he tells us about how strict he is, we can't take him that serious. We can't take him serious when he tells off. We're trying to imagine him telling off kids, and it's just like, nah, that ain't you. But how is it teaching children?
You know what? It's not too bad, to be fair. And I feel like because of the boxing side of it, I can relate to the students on a different wavelength than other teachers can.
Okay.
So there's certain students that play up for loads of other teachers, but get on really well with me because of that one thing. So I quite enjoy the teaching. 99.9% of the students are really nice. And obviously you got the odd one or two that aren't the best, but you got to deal with them in your own way.
Yeah, I think every teacher has, or every person has their own way of probably not. I like to use the word discipline because it is a form of discipline, but let's say we're guiding the students.
Yeah, I suppose you got discipline, guiding. If for the as a correct term.
Yeah. Did you ever think you'd ever be? So you didn't think you'd ever be a teacher before this?
No, literally not until about a week and a half, 2 weeks before I actually went for the teacher's training.
Okay, so it was very last minute then.
It was very last minute. I didn't know when I graduated. I still didn't at that point expect myself to be a teacher.
So were you apprehensive when you became when you obviously you made that jump and you got a week and a half to get your mindset ready for teaching, or doing the training, for example?
Yeah.
Or was the training a lot more helpful for you? I mean, was it everything you expected, or was it?
Yeah, obviously you have hurdles along the way, but it sort of played out the way it did, the way I sort of wanted it to. At the same time, I was always nervous about what if I can't manage doing it. What if this? What if that? There's always the what if, but I've made it work so far.
Can you talk to me about some of those hurdles?
Yeah, it's just a case of what if there's a parents' team, for example, and I can't make it to training, or what if during the teacher training there's an assignment that I got to do, so I can't make that fight, for example. So it was all down to managing it, and I had to give up a lot of sort of family time, a lot of social time. I still don't get a lot of time with my mates or anything, but it's the life I've chosen for myself.
Okay, and do you regret any of that?
No, I don't have any regrets. Even any sort of mistakes that I've made or anything I could have done better, I don't want to regret it because you learn from it.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked to me about your social life. You don't have much of that.
Not a lot of it, really. Nah, just
so it's
training.
just literally teaching and boxing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Teaching and boxing. Whatever time I do get, my body's knackered by that point, so I just want to chill out a little bit.
So how are your I presume you still have friends, but
yeah.
How they reacted to when they tried to have a little motive or a little link up? How they reacted to maybe when you said you can't come and stuff like that?
All my mates really and truly do understand, to be honest. Yeah. They're there every fight supporting me, and they do understand that when it's training camp, you're not going to see me, and they get that.
So do you ever see yourself at a point where you'll be able to become more sociable? I mean, obviously, is that when the boxing stops, or?
Yeah, that's pretty much after I retired from boxing. So I'm 26 now. I'm not far from my 30s, and I won't box late into my 30s. So I've got 5-6 years maybe around about just to keep that dedication and then enjoy life a bit more then.
So your friends are probably just saying 6 more years, and then you can come up for the motives.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, you're gonna go crazy then.
Yeah, all them years.
Right, so we've kind of covered your teaching. So I mean, obviously, when it comes to we were talking about earlier, in terms of obviously looking at young children and looking at how you have to motivate, how they are now less motivated than we were maybe, and obviously we're talking about this before we started the podcast. Was I talk about Beale because we're from Beale, and you don't teach at Beale, so we can talk about Beale. And I talk about your year, and I was in your year, and I was in the year below as well when I took a year out. And as I said, those 2 years produced a lot of people that became successful after. I don't know whether it was our parents or whether it was just the right time or we didn't have as many distractions as much. PlayStation was out there, but were we playing it as much as a lot of other people these days? I don't know. Was social media out there? It was, but is it as big as it is now? Is that playing an effect on people's aspirations? Because I think for me, in my mindset is, if you're on social media a lot, you're seeing a lot of people making a lot of money. All these Instagrammers, YouTubers, etc. And I think that would obviously kind of motivate them to do something. But so I'm not saying social media might not be the reason for motivation, but what do you think as a teacher, because you're in that environment where you see young people, what do you think is causing young people now? I'm not saying all young people as well. I'm just saying there seems to be a drop in what you call, a entrepreneurial or positive mindset amongst young people, where if something happens, they don't have the tools to be able to deal with that or cope with that. For example, if they were to obviously start a business, they don't have the tools to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's a criticism I think, people share on obviously teaching as well, in terms of do schools teach the right things, in terms of obviously making things. But we never got taught that. But I think we maybe just had a less distractions to deal with and more kind of time to deal with obviously our own trials and fails and trialing and failing things to then actually become positive out of it. But what do you think? What do you think with children? What do you think is holding them back at the moment?
So hold on, I think it could be just like a lack of guidance, a lack of role models out there to push them down that route. You mentioned the YouTubers, for example. I don't feel like a lot of these YouTubers that they look at provide the correct examples. For example, from a boxing standpoint, Jake Paul, for example, who goes around and will talk about so-and-so person's wife or so-and-so person's mum, and then they see these things and they think it's cool, and seeing their favourite YouTuber do that, they then go and say them same thing. So I do think it's a lack of role models out there, and that's where I sort of want to use my influence a little bit to steer in a different direction. And as I said to you before we started, my student, I don't want to have to push out to, you have to do boxing, for example. Just try and have something that's different to school and home. Have that breakaway. If you like singing, go into singing. If you think if you want to learn to play guitar, learn to play the guitar, but just have something. For me, just a lack of role models for the young ones today.
Yeah, I think so. I think I agree with that. I think I had role models to look up to. If it wasn't family, it was maybe influential people. Alan Sugar, for example.
There's always someone that you want to sort of be like, or you want to achieve what they've achieved, or take a page out of their book. And if that's not a positive influence, then you're going to start pushing out negativity in a way.
Okay, that's a good way of looking at things. And I think obviously, I think the onus is on us as well as the generation above the younger generation, is to become role models for the younger people, come in and give advice. And you're at a great place of being a teacher as well. So, how do your students feel? Obviously, they all know that you said that they said that they do extensive research on you. They Google you quite a bit. So I know everyone loved Mr. Raja for his MMA. Yeah. He had immense support from all of his students. So has it been the same for you?
Yeah, the thing is, I never tell them. I do not tell them that I box, and then they'll. Students are like, they will Google your name, the YouTube name, and I'm not a hard person to find on the internet, so they'll stick my name on YouTube and there I am, or they stick my name on Google and there I am. So, but once they find out, I sort of embrace it and talk to them on a level-headed basis about it. But yeah, it's something that they respect, something that they love, and they do show me loads of support as well. There's been occasions where I've had a fight and I see students there, I'm like, how'd you get it? I bought a ticket online.
Okay. Because obviously we'll talk about something a bit controversial in terms of teaching. Being a boxer, being something and I'm just being like the devil's advocate here. I love boxing.
Yeah.
I love the sport. I love hitting people, but it is a violent sport. And and we talk about obviously being in Bill. We obviously Mr. Raja had immense support, but it depends on which career path you go into. Mm-hmm. Mr. Garrett maybe not so much. If you know, you know.
Everyone talks about that. Shout out Mr. Garrett.
Shout out Mr. Garrett. Yep. obviously the school kind of received a negative image on that. So how has it been teaching? Has the school ever had concerns about you in terms of you being a teacher and boxing, about the kind of, or any parents showing any kind of unhappiness, let's say, towards a teacher being involved in a violent sport? And I only say that now because maybe back in the days it wasn't a thing, but we live in a world of snowflakes and Karens, for example.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And unfortunately, that might come at, it's not coming at a cost, but it might just be one of those things where, someone has raised a concern about you being a boxer.
No one's actually said anything to me about it, and it's funny you asked that question, because I thought it would be more of a problem than it has been later on down the line. But all my colleagues haven't said a thing about it. They all support me. Even at parents' evenings, parents come up to me and say, "I've seen you on YouTube, I've seen you on TV, and this, that, the other," and that's really good. So far, it's all been positive. I've had no negativity from parents or colleagues or anyone about it. Even if I was to walk in with a black eye, which I have a few times.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
even I have a few times, the college students just laugh it off.
All right, that's good to know. That is good to know. I think it's about how you perceive yourself out there. If you're on a Jake Paul flex, for example, then I'm sure that your school will probably have words with you and go, yeah, you need to calm it down. But I think obviously if you're acting as a professional, there shouldn't be any concerns with that.
Yeah, I think it's just about conducting yourself the best way you can, and I'm not going to go and badmouth anyone. I just let my fist do the talking and just be respectful of everyone.
Okay, so we talk about obviously your success, your drive. So let's talk about your boxing now. What hurdles have you gone through your boxing? You say you started at a young age.
Yeah.
Talk to me. So obviously, how difficult was it to get to your professional boxing level?
Yeah, it was hard because, as you mentioned, there are loads of hurdles. As in, even from a young age, you enter championships, and then championships fall through and fights fall through, even though you're deep in preparation. After turn professional is not been all smooth, as in there's loads of politics involved, loads of dealing with as in within professional boxing there's a lot of, as well as it is fighting and doing the performances, there's a lot of having to put money on the table at the same time. If the show's not making money, then shows get pulled and fights get pulled. So I had to overcome hurdles from that standpoint. And now we've had the lockdown, and that's led to me being a lot more inactive than I normally would be.
Yeah, so before we get to that lockdown bit, we'll talk about obviously coming in with those hurdles in terms of obviously you need sponsorships.
Yeah.
How's that been?
As I've been lucky all the way through, so I've got a few sponsorships. So shout out to Precision Build and Development for helping me out. Rose Opticians helped me out a lot as well. So thank you to all them guys who support me and sponsor me. So that makes my life a lot easier. Also, I mentioned that there's got to be money on the table. So to all my friends who buy tickets for me, because I always do a good amount of tickets and people always come out to support me. So thank you to all you guys, and I wouldn't have got to where I have been without that. And to overcome the hurdles, I think is down to mental strength as well.
Yeah.
And boxing's has helped keep you mentally strong as well. Even at work, people look at me like, "How aren't you stressed about this? How aren't you worrying about this?" And I thought just the training and the routine from it just keeps my mind strong.
Okay, so we look at a strong mental mindset. And what I've seen is that anyone that's obviously going into a sport or a disciplined sport, for example, an athlete, mental mindsets of because of what you do, it definitely helps you deal with issues as well, mental health issues. But we'll get onto mental health shortly. So you talk about politics. Obviously, being a black or ethnic minority, and or ethnic minorities, how has that played a part in boxing? Has that really affected you? Because obviously, I'll go back to Daniel Khan's interview. It did affect him in terms of obviously trying to get trainers, trying to get the promotions out, trying to obviously get sponsors out as well, and all kind of had an effect on that. Has that been the same for you, or have you been fortunate?
I feel like I've been quite fortunate. I don't think anyone sort of discriminated against me. Everyone's treated me quite well, and I feel like with most people, I've been treated. I've been spoken to the way I speak to them, and I've been treated respectfully. So obviously, it's not the case with everyone, but within my team and within most other people, everyone's been fantastic to me from that regard.
So okay, so obviously that's fantastic news. Let's take it a few steps back now. So, when you started boxing, what was the reason you started boxing?
Um, it's hard because I never. There's actually I can't even put it down to a reason. It was just a case of I was watching boxing one day, and I just thought to myself, I'll give that a go. I was like, yeah, I could do that. And then after watching just one fight on TV, I was always sort of into combat sports. As a kid, I used to love watching Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, all their movies from a young age. Not quite so much boxing at the time, but it was always like the martial arts stuff. So as it happened, just watching boxing on TV, I thought I'll give that a go. So I went down to the gym the next week, and it stuck with me ever since. And my mum and dad at the time, they didn't really want me to box, but they entertained it because they thought the first time I'll get a bloody nose, that I'll give it up.
Okay, that's a bit different because usually it's parents telling someone to go to do a sport like boxing or karate as a way of just being able to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. But your parents didn't really actually want you to because you'd probably get hurt.
Yeah, it was a case of don't do it because you're gonna get hurt. But they thought oh, well, entertain you can go because in the back of their heads they thought you're just gonna get a nosebleed one day and you're gonna give it up. And I remember my first nosebleed, like just a few tears out of my eyes, but I still wanted to go back.
Oh, that's good. That's good because sometimes it takes getting hit once for you just to get. This ain't for me. But obviously, did you ever experience bullying?
Oh, not necessarily. No, I think I've only ever had one incident in school, which you may or may have known about, which involved a bit of a knife issue.
Was this year 11?
10 or 11, one of the two.
Might have been.
Yeah. That's the only sort of issue that I had in school, sort of thing.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on that or no?
Not so much more. There was an issue with it. I wouldn't say it was so much bullying, but there was an issue that I had with someone who had a knife on him at the time. Yeah. So
fair enough. Yeah. Do you see a lot of bullying as a teacher?
I do. Yeah, a lot of bullying. Yeah.
So, what's your advice for young people that are going through bullying?
I think it's always just a case of standing up for yourself. Don't allow yourself to be in that position. Have a good group of friends around you. I feel like a lot of bullying is self-inflicted is the wrong word to say. Is a case of people try and impress the wrong crowds. Yeah. To make sure the people around you are actually like you for you being you rather than doing things to impress other people, and just stand up for yourself as much as you can. And also don't hold anything in. Speak to your friends, speak to your teacher, speak to your parents. Don't hold anything in.
I think obviously, are you witnessing, is it physical bullying or is it mental? In terms of when I say mental, is it a lot of verbal bullying that you see or is it physical? Because back in my days, back before Bill, I experienced a hell of a lot of physical bullying before I actually ended up, trying to, stand up for myself and, fight back. But there was the element of the verbal bullying, but that didn't really affect me as much as, let's say, the physical bullying. But what do you see these days? Because I will use this as an example, because my younger brother as well, he's gone through a lot of bullying at school, at Bill High School, and I will shout their name out as well because their handling of it was terrible. So, but it was tell a teacher doesn't give two monkeys about it and just deal with it. So obviously telling the teacher sometimes isn't always the best thing, as as you'll be grown as a snake, and that snitches get stitches kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing? Is it physical? Is it verbal? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's more I see a lot more verbal and mental over the physical. I mean, don't get me wrong, the physical probably does happen, but away from the teachers. Teachers probably don't see that much specifically. But I'll pick up on the verbal and the mental ones. I feel like a lot of the time they can be more detrimental than the physical ones. I know for a lot of people they'll rather just take a punch in the face than be than be mentally ridiculed.
So do you think that obviously doing a sport as say boxing or any self-defense sport, obviously if you don't want to physically go in, if you don't actually want to go into it as a professional, thing straight away. It might end up actually making you go towards the professionals, you know, thing like we use the Daniel Khan learned how to, did boxing to defend himself. He ends up being a professional boxer.
Yeah.
So do you think that it's a great way to deal with bullying? Because like you said, mental mindset as well. Not only physically are you strong, that if somebody hits you, you hit them back and be able to deal with them. Obviously, as a last resort, obviously you want to use violence, but you know, as self-defense thing. So if you've been able to deal with it physically, but mentally, people back away from you. But if you were to get if you were meant to get the verbal bullying, that mindset of you just taking things on the chin, figuratively as well as figuratively as well. That can help them out as well.
Yeah, I think something like that just gives people a way to express themselves. A lot of the ones who unfortunately do get bullied might be in a bit of a show, and because of that, they stay in their show. I think something like boxing or something that they can take up allows them to then express themselves. And again, they haven't even got to use the boxing, but just bring that confidence out in them can allow the bullies to back off. Even when I say stand up for yourself, not so much a case of go and hit them. It's just a case of show them that you're not, that mentally you can't be pushed around. And as much hard as that may seem, it gives them that way to express themselves. And as you said, not everyone's gonna take up a professional, and it goes back to what we said about success.
Yeah.
Every single person who walks into a boxing gym has different goals that they want to achieve when they walk into that gym. Some will walk in and say, I want to win the Olympics. Some will walk in and just say, I want to be more confident. But if one of them walks out and has made the Olympics and the other one has walked out and has gotten more confident, they're both successful.
Yeah.
Because they achieved what they want to achieve out of that.
Okay, so, that's a good way of looking at things as well. And I think that mindset has obviously helped, I think when we're talking about bullying as well, a way to express yourself. Unfortunately, people don't know how to express themselves anymore. And I see that obviously with my younger brother as well. He wasn't able to express himself with the family.
Yeah.
But then obviously his friends weren't probably the best group of friends to be with as well. And then obviously it just takes, they're kind of trapped and they don't know how to express themselves. But I think obviously, as teachers, I know you got enough on your plate, but I think as a system as well, not just you, but your heads of years, your counselors, everything at the school should be able to kind of push for more things to be done for children to express themselves, rather than go, it ain't my problem, because that's what Bill was like. And I'm not saying that every school is like that, but I felt like Bill was like, it's not our problem. And and it was actually quite shocking to find out from one of the hospitals that that would get child referrals for mental health, that Bill was one of the worst schools in Redbridge.
And 100%, because more does have to be done, because as I said, I see a lot more of the mental and verbal ones, and it's easy to let it go under the radar until it's become a lot worse than what it initially has. But at the same time, it's been allowed to get to that point, sort of thing. So it could have been possibly prevented or helped before it escalated into a bigger situation.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about obviously mindset. We've talked about obviously a bit of advice to the youngsters as well in terms of what they should be doing, and being able to express themselves, and obviously just finding an outlet that allows them to deal with issues as well. So what is your advice? So say some of your students now, let's say you're less inclined students. When I say less inclined, let's say less motivated students might be listening to this. Yeah. What advice? A lot of them, yeah. What advice would you give them to achieve success?
The advice I give them to achieve success is just put your 100% in. Set yourself a schedule, and I will say to them, when it comes down to your revision, for example, I'm not asking for hours and hours and hours a day. Set yourself a little schedule. Give me half an hour every 2 days. And just implement little things into your lifestyle that's going to help you achieve that success. So my main one would just be to have a constant schedule and be consistent.
Yeah, and be consistent. So we got the key word here. And obviously, for anyone that's listening or watching, we've talked about this in the previous episodes and the episodes before that as well. Consistency, I think, is one. I think it's a main thing of being successful. If you get lazy, laziness is the opposite of being consistent. And And the moment you allow laziness to take over, you're not going to achieve what you want. You have to be consistent, and sometimes that takes a bit of sacrifice. Look at yourself. You know, you don't have much of a social life at the moment, but once you're sort of achieving your goals at the moment. So obviously, let's say, obviously you said that you may retire in the next 5 to 8 years.
And also, just to add to the last point about consistency is, always be consistent. You're going to have good days and bad days, and it's important not to give up on the bad days. For example, let's say you're doing a maths test every couple of days. You get 80% on one, 70% on the other. Then one of them you get 40. You're not going to give up on that 140, are you? You're going to have that bad day. Same with me when I'm in a training camp. In my sparring days, there's been days where I've been hammered in sparring, and there's been days where I've been unbelievable. But you just can't let the bad days bring you down.
Okay, and I think that's part of being a positive mindset, is obviously just kind of understanding not every day is perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that those days that aren't the best days help build your character. Call it great character building.
Of course, no one has 100% of good days.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a couple of bad days.
Yeah, they say that success isn't achieved overnight. I don't think it ever is, unless you mine Bitcoin for a day and then you manage to become a millionaire the next day. But that's very rare.
Can't be reliant on that one.
Exactly, you can't be. And I think every successful person, Mark Zuckerberg, your Bill Gates, to your Ramez's, your Daniel Kahns, for example, anyone, you have to understand that when we do have our bad days, we just take that as a lesson learned.
Of course, yeah.
Think about why that day happened, how you can better deal with it, what have you learned from that. Don't take it as something that's bad, because and I say something, things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
So when I say things happen for a reason, that obviously comes coming from a Muslim background as well. Say Qadr of Allah, the will of Allah, things happen for a reason. So how has religion played a success, or has it not played a part in your success? Sorry.
I think it's just, I've always had that faith in me, so I'm not sure if it's directly helped in the success in a way, but it's something that I do always turn to.
Yeah.
When I have them bad days, it's something that I always turn to, and my faith is strong at all times.
Yeah. Quite a simple answer, which is more than enough. And I think, obviously, I'm not, for anyone that doesn't obviously believe in religion, we're not saying that, you have to be religious, obviously, but to remain successful. But it's good to see different people's, journeys, and whether religion has paid a success. A faith of some sort, a faith in maybe a system or religion, I think kind of helps, whether you know it or not.
Exactly that, and it just comes back to that structure and routine. You have to implement everyone has to implement their faith, as I implement my religion into the lifestyle.
Yeah,
because what it is a lifestyle.
So we talk about religion and faith and lifestyle. The lifestyle of a boxer, what is it? I mean, it's not like me. We look at obviously footballers, for example, and their lifestyles. You don't really get bad press about boxers and their lifestyle as much as you would with footballers. But what's the reality? Not to say yours, but just general industry. What is the reality? What's the lifestyles like?
It's hard. It's hard. Like if I was to give you my average day, it's a 5:30 a.m. wake up, do a run in the morning, and for me it would be shower up, have breakfast, go work. In my car, I got my gym gear. Straight from work, I'll go to the gym, have my second training session of the day, come home, eat, sleep, do it all again. So as I mentioned, there's not much time for social. For other professional boxers that I've been around, like a lot of world-class professional boxers, it's the same sort of thing. They'll just train 2 or 3 times a day, eat and sleep, and just do it again.
So it's not all glitz and glamour, girls, parties, or nothing like that. Nothing.
No, I mean, as everyone might think that's what it is, but they don't see what goes into it really.
And I think it's one of those sports you don't really expect it from as well. I mean,
no, exactly,
I mean, you look at Anthony Joshua, for example. You don't really see him living that lifestyle. He's always still talking about his training. You see all of his, documentaries on him and all his interviews, and he's still like out there training. Yes, we have obviously Fury with how he had his slump, for example.
Yeah.
But even then, to get back where he was, he had to lose a lot of weight. He had to get back into, let's say, being able to fight again. So it's not obviously, if you want a life of women, glitz and glamour, boxing isn't the one.
Nah, definitely not. I mean, it's hard. I can explain it all I want, but unless you're there and you're doing it, it's just that you can't put it into words how hard it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of running, isn't it?
Loads of running, yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I tried to do it, when I tried to go into boxing, I remember the first thing you'd have to do is, run around the blocks. Carry on running, run, carry on running. We'll tell you when to stop running.
But
yeah,
but I quite enjoy running now. To be fair, during the first lockdown last year, I was running half marathons just for the sake of running them.
Yeah, see, I inspire to have fitness like that. I aspire to have fitness like that. Yeah, to be a half marathon just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it is a lot. It's discipline at the end of the day, and I think with success it is discipline. No matter what you're doing, it has to be a discipline there. It has to be a balance of everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, have a bit of a social life. I'm sure you have somewhat of a social life as well. It's not entirely gone, but you have something that's able to bring your levels down when you need it.
Of course, yeah, 100%. So, my rest day is on a Sunday. So Sunday, I mainly just spend the time with my family. When I can, I'll get I'll see my friends. So maybe on a school holiday, one day a week, I'll go around their house, but won't have a late night at all. That 9 o'clock's bedtime on any day. But I get in what I can, to be honest.
Okay, it sounds like even though my friend's not a boxer, he's a teacher, and he has a bedtime as well. I've got a bedtime. I'm looking at him like, you're a grown man. You got a bedtime. He goes, yeah, I got to get up before the kids get up. And
I wouldn't have it if I didn't box, but it was just because of the boxing and the training in the morning. I need that sleep sort of thing.
I think it is a sacrifice as well.
Yeah.
It depends. Different levels of sacrifice are required for different things as well.
The biggest sacrifice for me is the food. I hate dieting. It's the worst one.
Dieting.
Yeah.
How do you deal with food? I mean, are you a foodie in general, or
I love eating. Yeah, I love foods. So when it comes to the diet, it's hard. But
how long do you say camp is? Because obviously when you go into camp, you have to be clean.
Yeah. So, a general training camp is normally about 8 weeks or so. But I'm always training anyway. I'm always on some form of diet.
Okay.
But for that 8 weeks of training camp, my diet really does get a lot stricter from that point.
And I think, do you usually have to shed a lot of weight, because there's a whole thing about boxing is dropping weight when you have to, and how difficult is that?
I like to keep my weight relatively close. Wouldn't say close, but within about a stone of my fighting weight at all times. So my weight cut isn't as bad as a lot of other boxers who will lose 2.5, 3 stone at times during a training camp. So, as I said, it's a lifestyle. So I'm always on some form of diet, and I'm always training 6 days a week. Okay. Everything just intensifies when the training camp starts.
And so you seem to be like switched on all the time. Your life just around the boxing.
Pretty much. I want to keep my body at about 60-70% of its peak fitness at all times.
Okay.
And then once you get the fight date, then you sort of want to peak and get to 100% for fight night.
Okay.
Obviously, you can't hold your peak at all times. Your body, the human body, just doesn't allow it to happen.
I mean, I think that makes it easier for you as well, compared, like you're saying, with other people. They have to then do a lot more work.
Yeah.
I mean, again, see that's that mindset already. You know, if you want to be successful, you've got to be at some point as well. And obviously, it makes it easier for you as well, and it's not detrimental on your health as well. You know, because weight cutting can be quite detrimental on your health. You know, serious. You see people wrapping themselves in cling film or bin bag.
Yeah, I mean, every boxer's been there, and I don't want to really be there again. To be fair.
Yeah. Okay, so we talk about, obviously, now the big thing that's happened over the last year is COVID.
Yeah.
COVID now would have affected you 3 areas: personally, teaching, and boxing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about boxing first. How has COVID affected you with boxing?
It's just led to me being a lot more inactive than I would have been. I mean, I was quite lucky in a way where I was on the last boxing show, the last professional boxing show before the first lockdown hit. So that was this day last year, as it happened, March the 14th, 2020. I was able to get a fight in, but I remember I sold about just over 100 tickets for that fight. Because of COVID struck and everything, only about 40 people turned up. And since that point, everything got shut down the week after. I would have boxed probably about another 3 more times that year, which obviously didn't happen because shows were locked off. So yeah, I kept training, but obviously gyms were closed as well. So I was training at home, set myself up at like a little home gym, and that's where I was training. Still training twice a day though.
Okay, and you see yourself boxing when you obviously get you already got plans to have fights. Have you got any dates already set or provisional dates?
Nothing set in stone at the minute, but provided everything goes well with the roadmap and everything, hopefully towards the back end of the summer, hopefully.
And you'll be back in full swing. I presume that
Yeah.
the fights will be a lot. There'll be a lot more fights with a shorter time frame.
Yeah,
to make up for.
Yeah, exactly that. There'll be a lot of fights, and hopefully I can be a bit more active and just sort of get some momentum going again.
Okay, so do you hold any titles at the moment?
So I won the Southern Area title up at featherweight.
Okay.
So I held that for a little while. And I'm currently rated, I think it's number 11 in the UK at the minute. So
Okay.
Still holding a pretty good ranking.
Okay. And what's your goal now for the? Are you trying to win another title?
Yeah, so I still want to win more titles. I want to go for the British and Commonwealth title, hopefully at some point in the next 12 to 18 months, hopefully.
Okay.
And push it from there, really.
All right. So it's gonna be quite a busy time for you once it comes back in.
Pretty much, yeah. Just keep the ball rolling, and hopefully I can show all the improvements that I'm working on, because even though I haven't been as active as I want to be, I've still been in the gym, still been learning, still been making improvements, and hopefully once I'm back in the ring, you can see a better version of me.
Okay. So obviously you don't get to spar at the moment then, or do you?
We can still get a bit of sparring, because I think the rule for elite athletes is in terms of boxing as well, is that they are allowed to train in the gym and they can still spar and whatnot. And due to my work, I'm always COVID tested anyway. So
Oh yeah.
So I know that I'm negative currently. Hopefully I don't jinx anything, but currently I'm negative at all times. So
Yeah.
I've still been able to get good sparring in. So I've been getting good sparring with a fighter called Lee McGregor, who's the British and Commonwealth champion at the weight below.
Okay.
He's fighting for the European title. Been sparring loads of good fighters.
Okay. And
so-
you're currently at what weight?
Super bantamweight.
Certain amount weight. And you trying to get a title for that?
Yeah, at that weight, yeah.
Okay. So obviously you're still at least you're still being able to obviously spar at the moment. Keeps you sharp as well. So yeah.
Exactly that. It keeps you sharp and just pick up new things, especially sparring at a high level as well.
Okay, I think obviously it's helped you being an elite athlete as well.
Mm.
So how's it been teaching wise? Because I know obviously teaching has taken many criticisms over the last year. Online teaching versus classroom teaching.
Mm-hmm.
How's it been?
Yeah, so I've only just gone back to face-to-face teaching Monday just gone, because that restarted on the 8th. Before that, it was all online, so we was doing that over Microsoft Teams.
Yep.
And to be fair, I got a good little schedule going with that. If I'm honest, you mentioned the online versus face-to-face. The quality of online isn't the same as the quality of face-to-face. Face-to-face is miles better, in my opinion. So the online was all new to me. So between January to February, I was just sort of picking up better ways to do it. So I'm sort of glad to go back to the face learning.
Okay. Lost learning. Now I have this concern with my brother now. So I talk as if I'm his parent, but obviously we obviously want the best for them, best for our siblings. It's a bit of a worry. Obviously, he's going to go into A levels. Hopefully, inshallah, if he passes his GCSEs. Well, even then, the exams are a bit, obviously done online as well at the same time. Now they're going in, but some of the exams are still happening online. Obviously, there is an aspect of it being able to cheat as well online. So there's that lost learning as well. They're going to go into A levels.
Mm-hmm.
If he does A level maths or physics or chemistry, for example, then he's not learnt the necessary stuff in GCSE.
Yeah.
And we know that the biggest jump in education is from GCSE to A level. It's not A level to it is. I mean, I remember, like I was saying in my previous podcast, going over to A level maths, physics, and chemistry and computer science. Computing was hell.
It's a different ball game, isn't it?
It's just different level of but we had our learning. Now, obviously, we're hearing news online or speculation, or ideas being proposed as to longer days, shorter terms. Example.
Shout out Gavin Williamson for that.
Yeah.
Don't like it though.
but obviously that's going to affect your boxing. That may affect your boxing.
It would, yeah.
But let's put the boxing aside. Obviously, teacher as well.
Yeah.
What's your thought process on that in terms of obviously taking and considering lost learning as well?
For the longer days, and it's a hard one because there's such thing as burnout as well, and not from the teachers. 'Cause I feel like teachers can manage it, but from the students, especially the younger students, how they're going to manage to having less holidays and having longer days. Even now, towards the end of the school day, between 2 and 3, you see a lot of students get a lot more tired towards the end of the day. So how are they going to cope with doing more? So maybe for the old students, it could work, but for the young ones, I don't think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Also, with regards to lost learning, some students have lost learning, but I feel like there's a lot of students out there, and this is down to individual, that prefer the online learning, and a lot of them really excelled a lot more on the online learning than they would have in school, and they picked up a lot more doing online lessons in school. Like, I prefer teaching face to face, but there's loads of students who said, nah, we learned more doing online lessons.
Yeah, because I've done a teaching course for one of the, I was used to train security at Heathrow, and we had to do a mini teaching course for a week. And you obviously get to learn, obviously, that people learn differently. But the whole, people obviously might prefer the visual online than visual being at school because of the distractions as well in the classroom.
Yeah.
Where you can't really have much. Well, you can have distractions at home, but as long as you're in the room by yourself, there's not much to be distracted with. But it's a bit of a weird point because you say that kids burn out.
Yeah.
And I think our kids are too soft. The reason I say that is because I studied it before coming to Beale. I was in Pakistan, as you could probably tell my big moustache.
Right.
I came in with, our days were a lot longer. I believe it was from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Right.
Our breaks were a lot shorter.
Yeah.
We used to have one break. And our terms were a lot longer as well.
Right.
We didn't have as many holidays as you would here.
Okay.
And I think the emphasis on learning over there is they're we'll say developing country, wouldn't say third world country, developing country, but they take education a lot more seriously out there.
Right.
Versus being in a private school as well. And I think we have to get our kids in that mindset that kids over here take education for granted as well.
Yeah, maybe, but then at the same time, if you got a kid who's used to a 9 to 3 day, and out of nowhere you've gone from a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 5, that there's no gradual process for that. So it's a hard one. I feel like the best ways to learn is retrieval practice, so spaced learning.
Okay.
So sometimes more isn't better. Whereas if I'm going to cover more of the curriculum in one day, then just gonna take in less. You can only take in a certain amount of things over one day.
Okay. All right.
So I feel like maybe it just needs to be spaced out a bit more. So maybe not so much the longer days. Maybe short holidays could be an option, or a few days in the holidays maybe could be an option. But I don't think you can just go straight longer days here, do more of this, do more of that, because your brain will take in so much information before it's had enough for that one day. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe keep it on the shorter days, get your training in as well, but maybe longer term. Maybe.
Possibly. I don't know. It's hard. There's got to be a way to make it work, but I'm not sure it's as simple as longer days, less holidays sort of thing. Okay.
It's only the only reason I kind of agree with a change is because of the lost learning as well. Like you said, some people might have excelled, but again, all your partial curriculum is being taught online as well, because of obviously because there was a time where teaching online hadn't started as well. Especially those doing the GCSEs, for example, in year 11, they've missed a lot of the curriculum as well, what would have been there. And obviously that's a bit concerning when they go into A-levels and still have to have that requirement. And I don't see A-levels being lightened up just because of the curriculum of the A-level being lightened up.
No, the A-levels going to be exactly the same sort of thing.
Exactly.
To be fair, I covered most of my curriculum over the online. I felt like I was going at a decent pace, to be fair. Yeah. Even my A-level one, I've nearly finished the curriculum with them already now, and a lot of that was online, so...
Oh, that's great. I mean, then you got great students, you're a great teacher. I can't say the same for... can't say certain schools and certain, teachers and stuff like that. But okay, fair enough. But it's also great to find out, the thoughts of a teacher as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the people, because you kind of see on the Facebook comments, the reason they want longer terms is because they want to take the children on holidays and stuff like that. And to be honest, we've been on a very long holiday.
There's that, but then at the same time, if you're still in lockdown by the holidays, then who's going on holiday anyway?
I think holidays for us versus children is slightly different. We want to leave the country. Children is their holidays is chill with their mates, play, which they have been able to do. I think still go to the park. I take the dog for a walk, and you see all these kids playing about. At least they're getting that.
Yeah,
even though they shouldn't be, they're still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that schools should have remained when it was open? So this is again.
Right.
This is again. Do you think schools should have remained open during the lockdown or not? Obviously, I don't think they should have.
It's hard to say it should remain open because cases were going higher. Yeah. But at the same time, could there have been a rota system in place? Maybe, but
testing.
As in like year 7s is on one day, for example. Year 8's on the next day. It would have been enough classrooms to get 3 in each classroom, for example. Yeah. Get the teachers on a rota basis because some of our teachers were on a rota basis anyway. So could there have been a system in place to make it work? Maybe for some schools, yes. Maybe for some schools, no. But then that causes a discrepancy between schools then. So I think maybe the simpler solution would have been just to close schools to that case.
Okay, fair enough. But now we can't dwell on the past. But we, obviously it was out of our control. It was the government's, decision.
This is exactly it. And one thing I did disagree with was back in November when Boris announced the second lockdown. That was a bit of a poor lockdown anyway. But schools remained open. I didn't really see a point of everything closing, but schools were still open in their normal form.
Yeah.
Where it's pretty much next to impossible to implement social distancing.
Yeah. And as somebody who's actually trained to do COVID testing as well, we were taught everything there is to know about COVID in terms of spreading. And I don't understand that we were taught by the NHS, but it's funny how the government don't listen to the NHS, because even though we talk about passing around, it was the children that could take it to the houses, and it should remain closed. And I think
well, I think with schools, taking COVID out of the equation, even prior to COVID, schools are just the hotbed for illness is spreading anyway.
Yeah, somebody gets a stomach bug, it spreads.
Pretty much,
it's unfortunate. It's just because of the way schools are, a large amount of people in a small amount of place, in the small places as well. Okay, so we've talked about boxing, we've talked about teaching. Let's talk about mental health now. Obviously, you told me about having a positive and strong mental mindset from boxing. Have you had any issues with mental health over the lockdown period?
Maybe little issues here and there. I don't want to go out and say the word depressed, because depression is a real issue. And the word depression gets thrown around a bit too much from someone who's feeling low on a certain day.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna use that word, but mental health was a bit lower than it normally would be.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what's gonna happen to the boxing career, and you don't know what's gonna happen to your goals, and you feel like there's nothing you can do, and you just feel hopeless. So there are times where your mental health is lower than what it normally is, but as I said, I was still training twice a day, and I'm quite positive anyway. So I was always training, just keeping positive, telling myself that there are better days ahead.
Okay. I'm not going to say obviously I'm a mental health expert. I've experienced quite a bit myself. I've seen a lot of people around me experience mental health to quite a bad scale as well. But what I have seen throughout, and I don't know whether I'll continue to see out, is obviously I've talked to yourself, I've talked to Daniel Khan, I've spoken to Henna, all kind of into fitness. And what I'm seeing as a trend, maybe you can agree, you can disagree, that health and fitness, we'll talk about physical fitness itself, does play a massive part on your mental fitness as well.
100%. That, in my mind, there's no doubt about that. Health and fitness does help my health. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean you're not gonna have your bad days, but it does help.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously the natural body chemicals that happen when you get your dopamine and stuff like that from obviously being actively physical, however you say it, but being physical basically, being active in that field. So all right, so you've been quite fortunate in comparison to other people then.
100%. I mean, with the teaching, I was teaching from home and still getting paid, whereas people were on furlough and getting an 8% of their full wage. And the one I feel most sorry for are just the small businesses and restaurant owners, and they've had it hard. And I've seen a lot of businesses, even my family, I've seen just businesses closed and people just don't know what to do. And it's unfortunate for them, and it is sad. And I'm lucky with my job and everything that I've been able to sort of just continue going on as I normally would.
Okay. But yeah, and the only reason I talk about mental health in this as a segment itself is, especially I do obviously will speak amongst with no matter what gender colleague I have or guest I have, but I always like to speak to males as well and get their perception of mental health as well, is because statistically men are more likely to commit suicide from mental health.
It's mad that you said that, because I did know someone quite well last year who did commit suicide and didn't speak out on things he was going through at the time. So, yeah, I think with men it's just a general thing where it's that the man always wants to be the provider, so they feel it shows a bit of weakness to speak to people about it. When that's not the case, I feel like it shows more strength to speak out. And
yeah, because I think it's instilled in us, and I think it's mentally, genetically as well. It's kind of said, be a man. You just got to deal with it. You've got to be a provider. You've got to be the strong figure. You can't show weakness. It's men that we don't show weakness. But like you said, it's not a weakness showing, talking and speaking out and asking for help.
this is it. We're only human at the end of the day. And I'm the same sort of, even when I do have my low days, I don't really talk to people sort of thing. And as much as I know I should, it's just something that I don't, and something that I got to sort of...
Feels uncomfortable, feels a bit weird. And I think like when I talk about my experience as well, I was very reluctant to talk about it. Just because you kind of feel vulnerable when you talk about it.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of put yourself in a position as, all right, if I'm sharing too much, what does that mean on my mental? Does that mean I completely break down? And I think obviously it's obviously trying to encourage men to talk, and it's not a weakness talking about it. And obviously, what we've seen is a massive increase over there, especially with COVID as well. The stress is on men, because men, like you said, primarily being the breadwinner. Not that we say, but we live in a society where women are breadwinners too. However, it's still in that mental man, especially maybe say Asian households as well.
Yeah, I think there's still the general conception where it's the man, or the man feels like they have to be the breadwinner, for example.
Yeah, and for us chilling at home while our wives are working, it's not an option kind of thing. So obviously, and I think we all agree with, there's obviously, if you are suffering from mental health, there's many people you can talk to. There's many services out there online. All you have to do is type it in onto Google, and you can have if you're not comfortable sharing it with your friends, with your family, there are services out there where you ring, they don't judge you, they don't ask too many questions, they just listen to what you have to say. And sometimes just offloading that, just telling somebody about your day and how bad it was, sometimes can actually help you, because you've relieved that stress.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and the holding is the worst thing. And then once you let it out, it's
can have
much better. Because I've had people that are close to me that have suffered with it and have spoken to me about it, and they've said to me sort of thing that they feel a lot better after just getting it out. And speak out.
And I think if you still struggle to be able to talk to somebody, find an avenue where you can release it healthy, in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
I'm not saying obviously go out on the road and start stabbing people, because unfortunately we have seen an increase in stabbings during COVID. While some crimes dropped, we saw that eventually, while crime did drop, it started to increase quite again, because young individuals couldn't stay at home. They felt trapped.
Yeah.
They went around stabbing people. Gang violence again is another. I think gang violence it's not as straightforward as you think. It's not just boys going around stabbing people for no reason. There's issues at home, and that's the only way that they know how to deal with things is through violence. And I think being a man as well, I think violence is kind of violent aggression is kind of instilled in this since the caveman period. And I think obviously if you're not feeling that you can talk to someone, find a healthy avenue. Do a sport, do some running, play some football. hit a boxing bag. If you like the violence, hit a boxing bag. Honestly, if you hit a boxing bag,
it helps. It does help.
Yeah. I mean, the boxing bag ain't gonna hit you back, but it depends on how hard you hit and if someone's back at you. But again, no one's gonna judge you for hitting a boxing bag, and it's a healthier avenue.
Yeah, just lay it out. You got to find a good way to lay it out and have someone close to you that you can talk to. Have someone that's gonna support you.
Yeah. So let's summarize let's summarize for obviously the viewers and the listeners obviously of our conversation today, and again you can just put in anything you want in. So we've obviously spoken to you, teacher, boxer, and obviously and it kind of shows that we looked at your mindset. This whole idea of the podcast is to obviously look at the mindsets of every individual, and hopefully maybe one of your students or maybe one of your family members might get inspired by you or actually take on for what you said. And I think what we have said is sacrifice, being consistent, and being organized as well actually helps towards to being successful. And obviously laziness is the common key factor. I think that that's the reason why people aren't successful.
This is it. And just to add is that even a lot of the students that I've seen that have lost learning, I feel like 70% of them are just due to the fact that they've been lazy with regards to online lessons. If I was to set them a task, like, yeah, don't worry, I'm going to do it, and they will never do it. So 70% of them have been down to that.
Yeah. And obviously start to look at positive role models as well for yourself. I say like there is a lack of role models sometimes. But find somebody, it doesn't have to be an athlete, it could be a businessman, it could be someone. Learn about them. They've all got books, they've all got autobiographies, all about, their mindsets as well. And it's good to find somebody who you can try to aspire to be. You don't have to be them, but you can aspire to have the same kind of qualities that they have as well. And success, and it's being consistent. It's always about being consistent. So find something that you like, and there are many avenues for obviously learning as well. Like I said, there was a lack of education in terms of not academic education, but in terms of obviously how to start a business. And this, I think younger people now are a lot more fortunate with the internet than we were. Well, we had the internet, but we didn't have as much as you guys have now. It's how to start businesses, what services there are. And there's a lot of free services out there to help you, and you can always ask somebody that has got a business. Always hit up our Instagram, for example, and we can always help you out where we can through our expertise and our experiences, as well as giving you obviously links where you can learn as well. But yeah, so obviously we found that throughout everything, your boxing has helped you more than anything, and it has. And again, for everyone else, it could be something different, but it shows that something being disciplined is something. How should be disciplined throughout the rest of your life as well.
This is it, yeah.
So we're coming to the end. So what are your goals in the next 10 years?
To win. Well, with boxing, there's three main goals, and they're in this order, by the way. So the first one is leave boxing healthily.
Yeah.
So that's goal number one. Health is priority. Number two, leave with some more titles.
Yep.
And the third one is leave with a bit of money in the bank. So that's the three goals with boxing. In the next 10 years, also that's the boxing goals in life. In the next 10 years, I'd probably like to have a family started, maybe have a kid or two as well. The next 10 years, I'll be 36 in 10 years' time, so I'll be getting on a little bit. So, just have my own house and my own family and stuff like that. So,
okay. Do you want to shout out your sponsors one more time?
Yeah, shout out to Precision Build and Development. Always help me out, and Rose Opticians. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming on. I do appreciate you coming on and talking about obviously what makes you successful, and hopefully somebody watching or listening can relate to Ramez over here, and be inspired to find their own success. And always, like I said, always shout us out, find us out on Instagram, moinspiration.official. We're on obviously Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, and many other platforms. But if you follow us on Instagram, we have a link in our bio where if you click on it, it brings you up to all the platforms available, which is actually on anchor.fm. So again, thank you very much for listening and watching, and thank you very much, Ramez, for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.